In your headlines, an official update on the murder investigation of Justin Beckles was issued by the police, and the Customs Department has made changes to their international travel protocols. Hello, Turks and Caicos. Welcome to PTV News Watch. Thanks for tuning in on this Tuesday, August 2nd, 2022. I'm Khalees Williams with today's newscast. The real news starts now. Police have issued an official update into the murder investigation of 22-year-old Justin Beckles, the young man shot to death outside a Provo nightclub last weekend. Newswatch has the details.
Police say one man, Brian Francis, has been arrested for murder. However, to date, no charges have been brought. Francis has not been charged for the murder of 22-year-old Justin Beckles, but remains in police custody on a 7-day remand granted by a judge. Commissioner of Police, Trevor Botting.
One other person has been interviewed in connection with this inquiry. This inquiry remains ongoing and fast-paced as we work to bring those to justice.
With an aim at updating the public on this murder investigation, police also spoke largely on the public's responsibility to speak up to help solve these senseless murders, pleading that it is not the time to stay neutral, but rather the time to speak out and not choose the side of the criminals.
Staying silent when you can help stop the violence is taking the side of the oppressor, of the very people who are killing our young men. If you know something, say something. Do not stay silent. Do not stay neutral, and choose the side of those despicable criminals carrying out these acts.
22-year-old Justin Beckles was shot and killed at Club 809 at Rock Plaza on Blue Hills Road around 3 a.m. on July 24th. Police say they are grateful for the cooperation of those assisting with the investigation, however, are of the impression that there are countless others who have key information and also witnessed the incident, and ask them to come forward.
However, this investigation, we believe there are a number of people who have key information, including, we believe, people who witnessed the murder of Justin. I'm speaking to those persons directly, and I implore you to come forward and tell us what you know. Do the right thing. Do the Christian thing in bringing to justice the person who killed an innocent man.
Anyone hesitant to come forward due to confidentiality reasons is reminded that they can call the Crime Stoppers hotline at 1-800-8477 to leave tips anonymously or call local police on 911.
The Customs Department has recently made a few changes in their international travel protocol, and Newswatch brings you those amendments, including the discontinuation of the Customs Declaration Form for international travelers.
As of Monday, August 1st, persons entering the Turks and Caicos Islands will no longer be required to complete the Customs Declaration Card unless carrying prohibited or restricted goods, goods in excess of the $600 personal allowance, or goods for commercial use. Travelers are allowed up to 1 liter of spirits or 2 liters of wine containing less than 42% of proof spirit. There is also an allowance of 200 cigarettes or 100 cigarillos, cigars with a maximum weight of 3 grams, or 50 cigars or 125 grams of smoking tobacco. These allowances do not apply to persons under the age of 17 years. 15 milliliters of perfume or 0.25 liters of eau de toilette is also allowed. Persons must declare if carrying more than $10,000 cash or a foreign equivalent of cash or monetary instrument. When it comes to duty concessions, officials warn that if you are in possession of more than your personal allowance of $600 or are carrying restricted goods or goods for commercial use, you are to enter the red channel marked Goods to Declare. However, if you have nothing in excess of your personal allowance, no prohibited items or items for commercial use, you are to enter the green channel, Nothing to Declare. Please note that customs officers are at liberty to carry out spot checks in the green channel, and it is important to know that if a traveler is in breach of the aforementioned, they are liable to prosecution or penalty and or confiscation of goods.
On the 13th of July, the Ministry of Education held a workshop to address communications planning and public relations. Here's more. The TCIG posted an official press release concerning a workshop held by the Ministry of Education that focused on communications planning and public relations. In May 2022, one of the critical reform strategies emanating from the Ministry of Education, Labor, Employment, and Customer Services Executive Retreat was strengthening the ministry's communications, branding, and public relations capabilities. The output that was agreed upon was the development of a strategic communication and public relations policy that would provide a comprehensive blueprint to guide and bolster the ministry's communication efforts with internal and external stakeholders. In order to achieve this, the ministry has mobilized a working group inclusive of a representative from each department and statutory agency within its remit that is tasked with the drafting of this policy. To support the working group and ensure a comprehensive communications policy, capacity development in the dynamic area would be essential to hone capacities and enhance knowledge and skills. The Ministry of Education was able to share the services of a hired consultant, Dr. Livingston White, to make a training workshop possible on strategic communications planning and public relations for the Ministry of Education's team through partnership with the National Security Secretariat. Dr. Livingston White is a senior lecturer and director at the Caribbean School of Media and Communications, the University of the West Indies, Mona campus, where he teaches courses in communication analysis and planning, social marketing, health communication, and communication research methodology, both at the undergraduate and graduate level. The training and development session took place on July 13, 2022. 25 members of staff participated in the hybrid session, which allowed staff to participate virtually and face-to-face. The Minister of Education, Honorable Rachel M. Taylor, noted the workshop training as, quote, vital because effective communication is fundamental to my ministry's programs. It allows us to build relationship with stakeholders, avert misunderstandings, and enables the ministry to build a solid, respectable image, end quote. The Deputy Permanent Secretary, Ms. Keisha Taylor, noted that direct and open communication is fundamental to the ministry's communication strategy, and that effective communication is more than just pronunciation or articulation. It enables the building of relationships, trust, unity, understanding, accountability, and clarity of goals, objectives, and purpose. We'll be right back with more News Watch when we return.
This is a reminder that all PTV service accounts are due on the first day of each month. Accounts should be brought up to date by the 28th of the month to avoid disruption in service. Payments may be made on our office at Stubbs Diamond Plaza, Providenciales, Mides Plaza, North Caicos, and Airport Road in South Caicos. Payments may also be made online using Scotiabank, CIBC First Caribbean Bank, and Royal Bank of Canada. Please allow 3 business days for online payments to be processed. We thank you for your cooperation.
So many interesting stories have emerged this week, but here's another one that made this edition of The Real News.
While much remains unknown about the impact of this post-COVID condition, medical professionals around the globe say that health systems must prepare for the long term. However, our minister doesn't think that Turks and Caicos will be impacted by the condition.
I don't think the impact will be great because we do have the vaccination mandate in place. And what the vaccine allows, meaning that all the tourists that come in having to be vaccinated outside of a medical exemption, which is given very sparingly, is that if they are in, the chances of them spreading the virus or becoming significantly sick while in country is reduced because of that. And hopefully most persons would have taken their booster shot by now, which would kind of re-up their immunity towards COVID-19. This is in addition to the various strands of COVID-19 being less impactful, so to speak, in terms of causing severe illness, even though there's still ability for it to spread. So we still have cases that kind of fluctuating between 25 to 35 on a weekly basis, meaning in terms of the total active amount of cases that we see in any one particular day or during a week. But that is more than manageable given everything we've been through so far.
Although the Minister of Health says it's unlikely that the Turks and Caicos would be greatly affected by the long COVID or post-COVID condition, he still acknowledged that persons who might be affected by this will need proper medical attention.
We have our healthcare system that's in place clearly. So persons who need the additional treatment that they might have, they just need to access the facilities, whether it's from a primary healthcare standpoint, whether it's the visits to the hospital that are here locally, so we can get ahead of and on top of any particular ailments they might have from what is considered long COVID. So there's a likelihood that there will be some type of spike in relation to persons who had or who might have long COVID, even though that's a smaller percentage of all overall persons who would have had the COVID-19 disease, particularly those who would have had the stronger strands, so your deltas and your earlier variants. So that's something that we can monitor and pay attention to.
As multiple health organizations are calling for increased support for patients with post-COVID condition and for health systems to acknowledge this long-lasting effect of the pandemic and help address it, the minister was inquired on if the Turks and Caicos' health systems are ready for the long term.
In terms of that, is that clearly any system can be improved, and that's what we are working on here in the Ministry of Health. But I would also say that compared to many health systems in the region, I think we have one of the best in terms of your access to healthcare, because we have a system between the primary healthcare, secondary healthcare, which is provided by the TCI hospitals, and the NHIB program, where we have access to tertiary care through the Treatment Abroad program, where almost just about in any situation you have access to some level of care. It's just a matter of where you access it. So what you don't have available on island, meaning in country, then we would refer you to an overseas provider, which is a complete package. So essentially we have universal health care. So while there are places where we can improve it throughout the whole entire chain of our healthcare system, which we are working on, and which is my focus, particularly coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic, the mechanism is in place to provide healthcare like many other countries only wish they could have.
Also, one crucial thing to recognize of the impact that post-COVID condition has on people's lives is mental health issues. If the challenge were to present itself, Honorable Robinson assures that our mental health department is getting ready.
I think we're getting ready, and that's why we would have invested in setting up the new medical health facility in Grand Turk, which hopefully before the end of the next quarter will be functional. We've already hired the additional staffing complement to be able to run such an organization that will allow us to deal with any new cases that are likely to come on because of the stresses of COVID-19, in addition to the patients that we have outside of the country in Jamaica and other places can come back home and actually receive treatment and care locally. So we aren't there yet, but we've put in all the pieces where we'll be in a very good position. And of course, if additional resource needs arise over the coming years, then clearly we would want to respond to that and make the appropriate preparation. And one of the things that we are doing within the ministry is having a greater focus on primary health care, because if we can curb the need to utilize secondary and tertiary care within the system, then we can provide savings, and those savings can be used to things like mental health, primary health care in general, as well as our response capabilities within the Ministry of Health. So we're trying to curb some of the things, the long-term issues that we experience as a young nation. So we're in a position to be able to better focus the resources that we do have at our fingertips.
Newswatch has gathered that rehabilitation is one of the 3 R's to combat this condition. Managing post-COVID condition requires a multidisciplinary approach with physical therapists, occupational and speech therapists, mental health professionals, nurses, and doctors working together in a holistic manner.
But we have all the components, and those components work together hand in glove, where there is synergy between the various levels of primary health care, your secondary health care, the hospitals, as well as the tertiary health care provider. So in the instance of that team, so you have what we call the Joint Referral Committee, which does a lot of collaboration for persons, and they will review whether or not persons need to seek help overseas or whether it's be able to be provided here. So there is, between the ministry, the hospitals, and primary health care, the mechanism by which persons who need the assistance can get it.
And as the minister assured that our medical team is trained and equipped adequately to manage patients with COVID, he says that the team will monitor cases, or in other words, be on the lookout.
As people present themselves specifically with any ailments to the healthcare system, whether it's from a primary healthcare need or a secondary healthcare need in terms of if they have to interface with the hospitals, that is essentially the mechanism which will be utilized to treat them and give them access to the hospital. So you can have your regular clinic visits where you can meet primary healthcare nurses and or doctors at that level, or utilizing the clinics on the various islands throughout the Turks and Caicos Islands outside of the ones that are set up within the TCI hospitals. And if your ailment can't be treated, then it could be passed up to the TCI hospitals, and or you can't forget the private sector medical facilities that are available as well. So you might just be visiting your personal doctor if you don't want to interact with primary health care.
So should the long-term effects of COVID be something for the Turks and Caicos population to worry about?
We aren't completely out of the woods of the COVID-19 pandemic. So continue to exercise caution and protect yourselves. Ideally, you wouldn't want to catch COVID in general if you could avoid it, generally speaking. Clearly, long COVID, for those who have caught it or who have gotten the conditions designated as long COVID, it isn't going to be an easy road back to recovery overall. So it isn't ideal. So you would want to avoid it if possible. And the only way to avoid it is not to get COVID in the first instance. So do what you can to protect yourselves and be safe.
Don't move just yet. Coming up next is your weather forecast after this break.
This is a reminder that all PTV service accounts are due on the first day of each month. Accounts should be brought up to date by the 28th of the month to avoid disruption in service. Payments may be made on our office at Stubbs Diamond Plaza, Providenciales, Mides Plaza, North Caicos, and Airport Road in South Caicos. Payments may also be made online using Scotiabank, CIBC First Caribbean Bank, and Royal Bank of Canada. Please allow 3 business days for online payments to be processed. We thank you for your cooperation.
Here at People's Television, we're more than just your leading news and entertainment services. We are
spreading the gospel.
We are breaking barriers.
We are preserving the culture. Each one, teach one.
We are committed to excellence.
We're creating change.
We are creating memories.
We are the future!
I am PTV.
I am PTV. I am PTV.
I am PTV.
We are PTV!
We are continuing the legacy. We are PTV.
Welcome back to Newswatch. Here's the latest in your weather forecast. For the nation's capital, Grand Turk, mainly sunny skies, high 84, low 80, winds east at 10 to 20 miles per hour. For South Caicos, mainly sunny skies, high 84, low 80, winds east-northeast at 15 to 25 miles per hour. For North and Middle Caicos, partly cloudy skies, high 85, low 80, winds east at 10 to 20 miles per hour. For Parrot and Pine Key, partly cloudy skies, high 85, low 80, winds east at 10 to 20 miles per hour. And on Providenciales, partly cloudy skies, high 85, low 80, winds east at 10 to 20 miles per hour. Here's your sunrise and sunset. Sunrise 6:23 a.m., sunset 7:29 p.m. Now for your high and low tides. High tides 12:08 a.m., 12:08 p.m. Low tides 5:48 a.m., 6:20 p.m. And for your hurricane outlook, for the North Atlantic, Caribbean Sea, and the Gulf of Mexico, tropical cyclone formation is not expected during the next 5 days. And that's it for your weather forecast and hurricane outlook. That's the end of today's edition of Newswatch, but don't forget you can always catch us on our website at www.ptv8tci.com and every weekday right here at 6:30 p.m. I'm Khalees Williams. Stay informed. Thanks for watching.